Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. Hope everyone out there is doing good, doing fine, good health, good prosperity, with your toils and tribulations at a minimum, if not totally gone. Today we are going to be breaking down episode 7, season 1 of Arcadia. This is about a 46-minute long episode. So it's going to be probably your standard 3-parter like most everything else. And I also am working up to do some YouTube live stuff. So keep an eye out for those announcements. Everybody out there that's watching these and leaving comments and subscribing and all that good stuff, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. So let's go without further ado into the bowels of rabbits. Actually, before we do that, these next couple episodes, 7, 8, 9, and 10, there are some fairly graphic, some very vulgar scenes in them. So you need to really pay attention and take the content warning at the beginning seriously. So without further ado this time, let's do this thing.
I'm Carly Parker. Stay with us. Last time, Jones had dropped a bombshell. Were the Marigold radio recordings messages from the past?
You have to wonder if pretty much everything Jones supplies is kind of a bombshell, so that's that.
That somehow answered Jones's question from the present? That's impossible, of course. Isn't it?
I have found that there's very little that's impossible in the Rabbits universe.
Jones appeared convinced that the game was somehow communicating from the past. This seemingly impossible communication, along with the appearance of what he suspected were wardens, had him worried. Very worried.
I think if something like this game did really exist, that playing it, I think my very nature would be paranoia, just because of everything we've listened to so far, and I know what's coming up. Yeah, you don't have to be paranoid to play Rabbits, but it helps.
Let's say that the game really is trying to communicate from the past, which I am in no way saying that I believe is true.
Okay.
What are the implications of this type of communication as far as Rabbits is concerned?
It's unprecedented. To my knowledge, this type of direct communication from the game has never happened in the past.
As I was saying, you don't have to be paranoid to play Rabbits, but it helps.
Could it be the wardens?
Maybe, but direct interference by the wardens would be concerning.
How concerning?
Allegedly, the wardens only appear when the game has been bumped off track somehow and things are in danger of falling apart.
Well, that sounds ominous.
And this, for those people who haven't read the novel, that theme of things being broken and having to be repaired, and people trying to disable the repairs and continuing the breaking, follows through the novel, which I suggest. It is a good read. It's enjoyable. It's a fun read. Pick up the novel, and less than 2 weeks, the part 2 to the novel, The Quiet Room, will be out. So actually, by the time this video posts, it will be already out. So just kind of ignore the in 2 week, less than 2 weeks part. By the time this video posts, it'll be out, and I'm really looking forward to that.
It is. If they can't put things right, the rumor is the wardens have to allow the dimensional stream to fall into entropy.
Well, now that sounds remarkably bad.
It would mean the end of everything as we know it.
Win the game, save the world.
What do you mean, everything?
It's complicated, but I think we can safely assume it would mean the end of all of us.
Safely assume. Okay, Jones, you're being more confusing than normal.
Imagine you were cloned.
Great. Okay.
And you were killed, but your clone lived on.
Oh.
Your clone would still kind of be you, but
not me.
It would be something like that.
Now that whole line of thought is something, growing up on a diet of science fiction and a little bit of fantasy, it's just one of those things that it's a great thought exercise. If you're cloned and you die, but your clone survives, does the clone become you or something else? It's kind of interesting. It's a good thought exercise.
How bad are things? Ticking clockwise.
Pretty bad.
Like years, months, days?
I'd say weeks, maybe. If those people in gray are wardens, and if these communications from the past are coming from them, then I believe the game has been so seriously compromised that things are, well, very bad.
Okay, but if the game is trying to communicate, to put things right, I mean, that's a good thing, isn't it?
Maybe. I hope so.
And that's a standard theme within the well, not only the Rabbids universe, but kind of, if you look at it, it's a theme of death and rebirth. And it's a theme in a lot of fiction. It even goes back biblically to the Christ symbology of, arrest, trial, execution, resurrection, which is kind of a good story theme. Look at the reboots of like Battlestar Galactica, the multiple reboots within the Star Wars universe itself, the reboots to Star Trek, and how they try to incorporate and continue the continuity with the old while bringing in the new. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. So yeah, this whole theme of death and rebirth, even in the story, even in the science fiction stuff I just named, it is within individual episodes. You have this motif over and over and over again because it's sound. It's something people can get into, something they can understand.
Jones and I spoke about a few other things, mostly unrelated to rabbits, and then said our goodnights. We had to get up early. We were going to visit Arcadia.
And this is where we're going to start getting... It's going to be a slow build, but it's going to get dicey over the next 3-4 episodes. See, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4 episodes.
Juneau is the capital of Alaska and the second largest city in the United States by area. Named after prospector Joe Juneau, the city is unusual in that there are no roads connecting the city to the rest of Alaska, or North America for that matter. You can, however, drive around the city, but you'll need to bring your car over via ferry.
That is something I didn't know, and I actually checked it. And at the time that this podcast came out, what she's saying is true. I don't know. I haven't done enough of the research to say whether or not it's still that way. This, handful of years after this came out, and I'd like to think it is. It might not be, but it's just kind of one of those things that makes you go, that's kind of cool, or kind of bad, depending on your views of isolationism. But it is what it is.
Juneau is, for all intents and purposes, an island city. All goods come in and out by plane or by boat. Cleo led us deep into a forested area north of Juneau. We walked for a long time through a heavily wooded section that ran along the bank of a river. Cleo was a fast hiker. Jones and I did our best to keep up.
Now, that is something I would love to do at some point, is go through and hike through Alaska. Preferably in the summertime, just simply because I don't do really cold really well. It's just not me.
Arcadia wasn't quite what I was expecting. I pictured a beautiful, serene garden environment. Instead, it was something else entirely. We reached it by taking a long, very narrow mountainside pathway.
This whole expecting something and being totally different, that is something that's relatable. There are several things that I had prior expectations to that turned out to be totally different. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. It's just one of those things they throw in that helps enhance how people can relate to it. My brain is getting mushy on me. It doesn't want to talk. The mouth doesn't want to talk.
It's a good thing I brought my hiking shoes. This was mountain lion country. At certain points, it felt like we were walking miles above the ground. One wrong step, and it was definitely over. It was an extremely long way down.
The fact that she brings up being mountain lion country is kind of cool, but what a lot of people don't understand are like cats, mountain lions, jaguars, bobcats. your felines are typically ambush predators. So if you see one, never turn your back on it. Walk slowly away, because things like speed and running tend to attract their attention. So just figured I'd throw that in just because.
We eventually made it to a level section, a kind of valley area. We continued walking about half a mile or so through the middle of the valley before we came upon a large clearing. It appeared to be man-made. It was an almost perfectly symmetrical circle, symmetry that was amplified by the fact that there was a ring of about 50 or so old cars, arranged in a perfect circle.
See, now that, I think if I were to stumble across something that, even in the middle of a national forest or state park, I would be weirded out. I mean, then you add the remoteness of Alaska. Yeah, then you have 50 cars in an almost perfect circle. Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
In the middle of everything stood a large light gray stone. I'm calling it light gray, but it was actually pretty hard to tell what color it was. It was covered in some kind of strange graffiti. This is Arcadia?
That's what they call it.
What's with the cars?
Apparently nobody knows.
And that weird rock thing.
The Carsworn.
The what?
It's a Carsworn, an ancient pagan ritualistic stone. Legend has it that a Carsworn is placed at a barrier between this world and the world of fairy for protection.
Why do they need protection from us?
It's the other way around.
What do you mean?
Now that thing there is indicative of the Public Radio Alliance and Mental Beats Well does a podcast, Fairies, which is based on that very premise that they set forth here. And it's actually a really good podcast. You ought to, if you enjoy rabbits, you might enjoy this. This is, except I think Fairies is a Spotify exclusive. So if you don't do the whole Spotify thing, you may not be able to access it. So yeah, just check around the different, wherever you get your podcast stuff, and see if you can find it if you don't do Spotify. But it is it's even worth just a non-premium, just the free Spotify account just to listen to this podcast, to be honest with you. Well, all of the stuff that PRA and Mental Beats Well have put on out in the world. So yeah, it's an interesting concept. So
It's to protect us from them.
From fairies?
Yes. Although more accurately, where the Carsworn is concerned, they're referred to as the small ones.
The small ones. They don't sound very scary.
The small ones are cannibalistic. In Celtic lore, they're often stealing babies and baking them into pies that they sell back to the families.
No kidding.
Pretty scary, actually.
scary would only be the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned.
The Carswern, Karswern, was about 7 feet tall and looked like a giant river rock, as if it had been worn while sitting at the bottom of the biggest river in the world. It was incredibly smooth and very cool to the touch. It had no shine at all. A large amount of arcane symbols had been both carved painted, and sharpied onto the stone. It looked like about 1,000 years of graffiti, in every form possible. I didn't recognize any of the symbols except for one that had been carved way up near the top. It was the moonrise.
Now, something like that would be an interesting art project to do. I think it would be kind of cool to take a large chunk of rock and do all different type, do graffiti like in Latin, ancient Greek, throw some runes on there, and slowly evolve it to modern graffiti. I think that would be a pretty cool art project, just to be honest with you.
The triangle with the circle above it. I took some photos of the cars and the stone and walked back over to Jones and Cleo. What now?
We start looking.
For what?
For anything.
Great.
See, and that's another problem with playing the Rabbits game, is anything and everything can be a clue while simultaneously not being anything at all associated with the game. That's where the paranoia builds up.
Hey everyone, my name is Terry Miles.
We have reached the advertisement in there, and I'm going to try to...
Check the Rabbits podcast feed for a 3-episode miniseries
Climbing through back seats into trunks to pop the locks.
novel. You can find it anywhere books are sold or visit terrymiles.com for more information.
We'll listen to the end of it. There we go. Back to the story.
We spent more than 3 hours there, looking through cars, climbing through back seats into trunks to pop the locks. All of the cars were unlocked, so there was no problem examining them. Apparently, dedicated players had been coming up here for a while, although Cleo told Jones that Arcadia moved around, and that this location with the cars was only 4 or 5 years old. She said that the cars whirn was the only constant. That's how you knew you were in the right spot.
And that's interesting. Makes you wonder what surrounded the stone in previous iterations and what will surround it in future iterations. So it's just kind of a curious thing.
We were about to give up for the day when I found something. It had been stuffed into the back of the glove compartment of a green and faux wood-paneled 1978 Ford Pinto station wagon. It was a small wooden spool of thread. It looked to be at least 50 years old, probably more. The thread was green. The label read, Découvert cotton green thread.
What is it?
It's a spool of thread.
Let's go.
That's it?
Yeah, looks like that's all we're gonna find here.
That was it. A spool of green thread. Jones and I went back to the hotel to eat and research the company that manufactured the thread. We still had a few hours until Cleo was due to drive us back to the airport. On our way through the lobby of the hotel, I saw something on a tourist map of the area. It was a lighthouse. Actually, there were 2 of them on the map. The Five Finger Lighthouse and the Sentinel Island Light.
How many steps to the lighthouse?
So, how many steps to the lighthouse? I did a little research when I got back to my room. 31 steps up to the Five-Finger Lighthouse, and 20 to the light at Sentinel Island. I wrote the numbers down in my journal.
Okay, I think this is where we're going to call this good. I hope everyone is enjoying things so far. And can't wait to get to the next part. Until then, peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?